Raiders training camp day one officially in the books. So who or what stood out the most? That plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for July 24th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We shout him out. We appreciate him. He does really good work. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. With Raiders football being back, day one officially in the books. You can imagine a lot of good calls, a lot of good buzz around this Pete Carroll-led team. What is he going to do in year one? So a lot of good conversations about the players, a lot of good conversations about the team, maybe some of the conversations that we've had already leading up to day one of training camp, but really good feedback from Raider Nation. So we'll hear from you coming up. Segment number 3, today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Segment number 2, really talk about what stood out to me the most. Not necessarily who. Of course, we'll talk about a few players, but more importantly, what stood out to me the most about day one of Raiders training camp. Remember, it's an acclimation period right now. Next week, they'll finally get the pads on, but that was just day one. So we'll talk about that, break it down. You'll hear from a couple of players as well. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day and something to get excited about when it comes to being a part of Raider Nation. I'll tell you about that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So, first of all, it was great to be back at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. It was great to be out there, walk the field, be able to see, some football activities going on, the players out there, full throttle, flying around. That was exciting, right? It was also exciting to see Raider Nation in the stands. It was great to see folks that listen to this show each and every day. A lot of people shouted me out, "Hey, Q, I listen every day." It was great to meet and greet. I wasn't able to say what's up to everybody, but man, it really is a good feeling knowing, the kind of impact that you have and the kind of reach that we have here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So shout out to everyone that I was able to say hello to, shake their hands, and even get a few words in with. With that being said, got some really good news that I found out from the Raiders on a Wednesday late afternoon, and I think this is pretty cool, but they let it be known, sent a text message. Tomorrow's Raiders training camp practice is free and open for fans to attend in a first-come, first-served basis. Practice tomorrow starts at 8:30 a.m. So that was Wednesday afternoon. We got that text message from the head of PR. So that's awesome. So what's that saying is that practice that starts this morning at 8:30, and I don't know what time you're going to be listening to this, so practice might be going on by the time you're listening, or maybe you're someone who's listening to it early in the morning. You're thinking, man, I want to go and get a part of that training camp experience. I want to do that. Well, guess what? You don't have to be a season ticket holder. You don't have to be a vendor. You don't have to be some kind of big-time sponsor. You don't have to be any of that. Right? They're allowing anyone who is within the area, whoever wants to come and see their team, even if you're not in the area and you're driving up and you're like, hey, man, I was on my way to Vegas anyway. I'm going to slide on by the practice facility. You can do that. Now, I'll tell you, doors open at 7 a.m., and if you want to come in, there is plenty of room, but I would get there early. I'll get there as close to 7 as possible. Practice begins around 8:30. 10:10 is when practice ends, and 10:25 the event is wrapped up. And there's a parking lot on Amigo Street. Just know that. There's a parking lot right off Amigo Street. That's where you need to park. It's right kind of behind the practice facility, and it's an easy little walk to get in, and you'll be able to enjoy a really good day of Raiders training camp. And honestly, we heard from Pete Carroll on Tuesday. I talked about it on Wednesday's show, as a matter of fact, that he said that he wanted to accommodate as many fans as possible, as many fans that fit into the facility. And I'll tell you, on Wednesday, there was a good chunk of fans there, but that's all it was as far as I was concerned, a chunk of fans. My expectations were that there was going to be more. I think Pete Carroll's expectations were that they were going to be more. So I think that he went back and said, hey, man, we need to open up the floodgates. We need to get Raider Nation in the building. We need to get them excited about this team. We need to get the energy. Players tell us all the time, when the fans are there, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're yelling Raiders and all that good stuff. That gives them extra energy, and I don't think that they got that in day one. And it's okay. It was only day one of training camp, right? So Raider Nation is getting lathered up as well. I'll tell you right now, I had to get, kind of lathered up. I was like, man, I realized that it's been a minute since I've been out here, right? Dealing with the heat, and it wasn't even really that hot on Wednesday, but just kind of walking back and forth, being out there, getting up there early and everything. I was like, man, I feel some kind of way. So we're all in training camp, right? We're all trying to get to midseason form, but that's great news. And it's not going to only be today. There's going to be many more days when they're practicing outside that the practice will be open to Raider Nation. So if you can't make it today, you'll probably have another opportunity to make it later on down the road. But I just think it's great that they're trying to get as many fans in there as possible to check out the process, check out training camp, get to see their favorite players up close and personal, maybe get an autograph, get a picture, whatever the case may be. But starting today, practice opens up. Starts at 8:30 with the doors opening at 7 a.m. The parking lot is off Amigo Street. So if you want to be there, you want to represent, you want to check it out, you can. The invitation is open for Raider Nation. I think that is really awesome. After practice, and we'll get to what I saw in practice and what stood out to me coming up in segment number 2, but after practice, I had an opportunity to catch up with Raider safety Isaiah Pola-Mao. He's a guy that's been around the organization now for 4 years, even though this is really the first time that he's come into the year as the starter after taking over from Marcus Epps last year when he tore his ACL. So I had a couple minutes to catch up with Isaiah following practice. Here's that conversation. Here with Isaiah Pola-Mao after the first day of practice. How did that feel to get out there and compete, knowing that the pads aren't on yet, but it's still the first day of training camp?
It was good energy, especially for the first day. Everybody had good energy. Coach Pito was bringing it, but, everybody's flying around excited to be back.
It's the acclimation period. So for you, what is most important right now as you're getting ready and geared up for pads that'll come down the road?
I mean, we had 5 weeks off, so right now it's just about getting back on the same page with everybody, making sure everybody still up on the playbook. It's just knowing who we're talking to, not just yelling out, calls. It's talking to each other because that's what it is. We're out there together.
What was that week's off, right? The time between mandatory minicamp getting wrapped up and right now, how important was it to have that retention?
I mean, it's everything. I mean, yeah, you got to get away and reset your mind, but it's also staying up on the playbook and just being ready. So when we hit the ground, for training camp, we're flying, we're moving around, we're going. It's no steps backwards,
So this year, you're, penciled in right now as a starter, and you know how that goes. It's competition, but you also have Jeremy Chin. You have Jamal Adams that they just brought in. How excited is for the safety room are you, and how much will they help you as veterans?
I mean, it's everything. Experience is everything in this league. So having people like that's been there and played in big games and made big plays, it's everything, because all you can do is just learn from them.
Yeah, no doubt. And just the first day of practice, how do you feel that everything went? How do you feel the communication went? How are you just kind of feeling about the overall process?
It's good. I think PG and the coaches do a really good job of teaching us and getting us back on track and what our goals are this year and in our mindset. So I give credit to the coaches.
What is it like being under PG? Because everything I hear is he's very creative. He loves football. It's all about ball. What is it like with him?
I mean, I've been with him for 4 years now, so I'm used to what his style and what he's thinking and how he wants to play. But everything, we're aggressive. We want to dictate to the offense, and it's not about just sitting back and letting them catch it in zones. It's all about being aggressive, and that's what I love.
Well, let's close it out with this. You mentioned you've been with them for 4 years. Your grind came from being an undrafted free agent to now getting a contract extension. Have you looked back at it yet, or is it still full throttle going forward and you'll look back later?
Yeah, it's always full throttle, man. It's easy to get complacent, so I try not to dwell on things like that, but it's always full throttle ahead. This league is what have you done lately? So,
right.
Trying to prove it.
Well, congratulations on the family as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
Really good stuff from Isaiah, and kind of goes with the theme of what we're going to talk about quite a bit in segment number 2, some of the things that he had to say there. He's never going to be a guy that's mistaken for, a big, long conversationalist. He's never going to have big, long, drawn-out answers to any question that you ask, but really good dude. He's one of those guys that has proven that hard work pays off. The guy, as I said to him, right, you joined the organization as an undrafted free agent. They saw you, and this was Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, so you got to give them credit for that. They signed him off of the regional workouts, right? He was a USC guy, so that's considered the home area. So they were able to have those, those draft workouts and everything with regional players. Isaiah was a regional player, and that's how they discovered him, and he's been around the organization ever since that, and he was awarded this past offseason with a 3-year contract extension. He goes into the to the training camp and goes into this regular season as a starting safety for the Silver and Black. But let's get into what stood out, who stood out about day one of Raiders training camp. We'll hear from a couple players like Maxx Crosby and Jacoby Myers, but again, I'll talk about what really stood out to me the most. We'll do that coming up. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to remind you that this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. I know a lot of people get fired up for that. Well, get that group chat going, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. Plenty of people are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Folks have been using Yahoo Fantasy for years and love how smooth each draft day experience really is. And leagues have been running through Yahoo for a while now. It's an easy setup. They have a great mobile app, and they got the smack talk on the message boards. It just hits different. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL, and make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to kind of give you my overall thoughts on day 1 of Raiders training camp. As I mentioned in segment number 1, it was just great to be back out there, right? It was great to see Raider Nation out there. It was great to see a lot of Raider alumni out there. It was great to have some really good conversations that were needed to have out there, especially by me. So I thought it was great to be out there for day 1. And the players were fired up. The players were excited. You saw the big smiles on their face. You saw the fact that they were fired up, ready to go. And look, this is just the acclimation period. They're not going to go and win the Super Bowl in the first couple days of training camp. And there's not going to be, I don't think, someone who's going to stand out and just all of a sudden take over training camp. And you say, well, you really got to look out for those guys. But you saw that there was a lot of install that was going on. I love the fact that from the offensive side of things, I was seeing Chip Kelly make sure that the quarterback was able to get the wide receivers the ball early and often, really quick, a lot of quick hitters, screens and smokes. I was great. I was happy to see that, right, because it's just something that we don't see very often in the attention to detail when it came up. Timing blocking to make sure that even the simplest little passes that were thrown could go for some big yardage, like stuff like that. Just going over, again, like install stuff, right? Stuff that these guys may never even call. They're installing it, but they may not even call it. The thing about it is, what stood out to me about the install is that they weren't allowed to go back to where they were during OTAs and mandatory minicamp, right? It was as a matter of fact, that they needed to come into camp. Obviously, they needed to be in shape. Check. They were all in shape, right? Christian Wilkins is on the PUP list, but everybody else was in shape. You know, the conditioning drills and conditioning tests went really well. The only guy that I didn't see out there was Thayer Munford. He wasn't out there, and then, of course, Christian Wilkins is on the PUP list, so I didn't see him either. But for the most part, everyone else was accounted for. So that was good to see that and see all those guys out there participating. And, you know, for the most part, these guys are going to be the healthiest that they're going to be all season long. But, you know, to not be able to go back to OTAs and mandatory minicamp, and we hear that so much from coaches, got to hit training camp, got to hit the ground running. But the difference is these coaches don't have the track record of a Pete Carroll. These guys don't have the skins on the wall to say, no, this is how it has to be, right? It's not a suggestion. It's not what we're hoping for. It's what we're going to have. And so that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me from day 1 at training camp, is that they did do exactly that. They picked up where they left off from OTAs and mandatory minicamp. As a matter of fact, I want you to hear from a couple Raiders. First off is Jacoby Myers just talking about day 1 of camp and the fact that he's learning this Chip Kelly offense and is different, but how different? And then you'll hear a follow-up when I ask the question about knowing OTAs and mandatory minicamp, what they learned and how critical it was to pick up where they left off. Check it out.
Football is football at the end of the day. Like, you get into your spots, but the way he gets to them is definitely different. How he likes to spread the field or condense the field, it's unique. But I enjoy a new opportunity because every time I get a new offense, it's just a little bit more I can add to my game. You know? So it's cool.
With that being said, how important was it to retain what you guys picked up in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, bringing it into today?
Nah, that was big. Like, that probably we needed that OTAs. We went really hard in OTAs. Like, we practiced full speed, like 100% every time. So we needed that time to really get a jump start on the season and move us in the right direction.
Jacoby Myers right there, and you heard what he said. We worked really hard in OTAs. We worked really hard in mandatory minicamp. And remember, that's something that I talked about following day 3 of mandatory minicamp, where most of the part on time coaches say, all right, hey, we had a really good offseason. Thanks for being here. Go into the summer, come back, be in shape. Let's get ready, go full throttle in training camp. But that wasn't what Pete Carroll did. He used that practice day. Matter of fact, he used more than that practice day, right? He got after it and said the commissioner said that they, they were in a tie and that they had to go ahead and break that tie. So that day 3 of mandatory minicamp went longer than we all expected it to go. And so really sticking with that OTAs and mandatory minicamp and retention of what they did, that stuck with me. So when we had a chance to talk to Maxx Crosby, I asked him the same question about that.
How important was it to retain what you had in OTAs and mandatory minicamp and come in today and not feel like it's day 1?
Yeah, honestly, like, we talked about it yesterday, but we went so hard in OTAs, like it feels like today was smooth. Like it wasn't like, previous training camps where you come in and day 1, people are dying and stuff like that. Like, I know the guys have been working. A lot of the dudes have been here, training ever since we got done with OTA. So, like, we've had a big group here working and training. I know a lot of guys. Gino's been in Miami getting to work and has had guys out there as well. So, it just felt like we were right back to business. So, yeah, I know on a personal level, like, there's little things that, today just cleaning up, like, not second-guessing a couple things. But, yeah, just overall as a team, it was great seeing guys fly around and have fun. So it's just an opportunity every day to get better.
Again, that really stood out to me when he says, man, we went so hard in OTAs. We had such a hard camp, in mandatory minicamp, where to Max, it didn't feel like Wednesday was day 1 of training camp. It just felt like that they were picking up where they left off. I think that that's really critical. Right, we heard from Pete Carroll on Tuesday when he opened up training camp. He said, this is what I'm hoping is the hardest training camp these guys have ever gone through. And the reason why that stands out to me, and I think that that's a positive, and look, there's a lot of people out there a lot smarter than me, and you could tell me if you think I'm wrong, that's fine. But what stands out to me and why I think that that is such a positive is because Pete Carroll and company are stressing these guys and straining these guys like it is a game. So if you go through your practice and you practice like you're in a game and you're dealing with adversity, and that's what we saw on Wednesday. We saw 1s going up against 2s. We saw one guy from the 2s being inserted in with the 1s, not because it was the depth chart, but because sometimes in a game setting that happens. Sometimes a guy goes down maybe on the offensive line for one play, and all of a sudden you've got a guy that's a 2 have to step up with the 1s. All right, well, how does he deal with that adversity? So you saw them putting these players offensively and defensively in strenuous type situations. How do you deal with the adversity? If you could figure it out and you work your tail off and you feel like this practice is the hardest thing I've ever done, when you get to the game, it's easy. All right, we worked harder than this in practice, right? That's what they'll be thinking. Now, the game is obviously fun, right? People don't like practice. People don't like training camp. People don't want to be out there in the sun. I get that. But if you're going through that strain, if you're going through that stress, if you're dealing with adversity and you're trying to get the most out of it and perfect it, and the defense is trying to pick off the offense is trying to pick on the defense, right? If you're going through all that and you have 2 units that are complementing each other and really working hard against each other, once you get to the game, it's easy. And that's the type of environment that you can see that Pete Carroll is trying to create, right? Where the competition is so tough in practice, where when you get to the game, you're not stressing off it. Oh, I go up against tougher dudes than this in practice, right? And that's what we hear from championship teams. We hear that. Whether it's in college or it's in the pros, we hear that. Championship teams, they work so hard in practice, they get to the game, and that opponent that they're looking across from, they ain't nothing. Oh, this is good. I'm good to go. I got this guy. He's cooked, right? And so, and that's how it is. And that's what Pete Carroll did in Seattle, right? That's how he created that competition, that environment, that expectation to win. Pete Carroll said it on Tuesday that he expects to win a whole lot of games, right? I mean, he said, hey, I've been winning 10 games a year for 20 years, right? I expect to win a whole lot of games. Now, if you go back and do the research, 18 years, 13 times out of those 18 years, Pete Carroll's won 9 or more games. So when we talk about wins and losses and what do we expect in year 1 of Pete Carroll, well, there you go. The blueprint's there. The evidence is there. Players like Jacoby Myers. Hey, I like when Coach Carroll says we're going to go win a lot of games. Now it's up to us to go back them up. Maxx Crosby, I expect to win every time I hit the field. We haven't done that since I've been here. I want to win. I expect everyone else to want to win. Like this is what we're supposed to do. When Coach says that, we have his back, right? I mean, you could just see what they're trying to achieve and the way they're trying to achieve it. I've talked about it many different times about other coaches that have come into to the Raiders organization, even since I've been here in Las Vegas, and they have a plan, but the plan isn't clear. The plan is clear. The plan is clear of what this Raiders team is trying to do and the way that Pete Carroll is trying to go about doing it. Geno Smith, Aiden O'Connell, both guys look good. I think Aiden O'Connell did a really good job on a Wednesday, day one of practice. I thought Geno did as well. Geno's going to take chances. So there's going to be some times I'm going to come back and say, hey, man, Geno threw a couple picks. Like he almost got picked on Wednesday, but Trey Taylor dropped the ball. But he was in position to make the interception. But Geno's going to try to – he's going to try to thread the needle. He's going to try to take a couple chances. He's going to try to stress himself a lot as well to try to get the most out of him and also get on the same page with the receiving core. Again, I'd rather Geno make as many mistakes as possible in July and August as opposed to September, October, November, December, in the first week of January, right? Get all the mistakes out now, right? Do all the things that you can do and are trying. Do it right now, right? And then when it's time for the real games, then you won't make those mistakes. It's funny. I always talk about my early days in radio when I was on music radio and I was just a part-time guy. So my show was Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon. So Friday night was a late night mix show. Saturday night was a late night mix show. Sunday afternoon, that was my day, right? But Sunday afternoon, it was just like, okay, whatever. But I went into those and I would try stuff. Like I would think, man, I wonder if I could pull this off. I wonder if I can get this phone call over this, 20-second intro. I wonder if I have this subject, I would try stuff that I wasn't sure if it was going to work because I didn't feel bad about if it failed on a Sunday afternoon. Or even when I did overnights, I really wasn't worried about overnights. 3 a.m, I make a mistake, I ain't worried about it. So then I did all that and made all my mistakes when it wasn't prime time. So when I got my opportunity in prime time, just on music radio, when I was practicing overnights and Sunday afternoon and all that, it came natural. And now I was able to pull it off. And I was like, man, where'd this guy come from? I've been doing that. That's what they're doing, obviously, on a much higher level, right? This ain't Q97 in Fresno. This is the NFL, right? So they're trying to do some really big things, but it's the same concept. It's the same concept. And it's funny, there was a good teaching moment for Dante Thornton Jr., the 4th-round pick, the wide receiver out of Tennessee. And, we look at that wide receiver room and we say, okay, there's going to be a lot of young guys that they're going to be dependent on. And you saw Dante Thornton get a lot of burn out there, just like he got a lot of burn in mandatory minicamp, but he had a moment that he has to learn from. And I'm sure he will. It was only day one. The biggest key, as Pete Carroll's told us, you can make a mistake, just don't make the same mistake. So Geno Smith has a pretty deep ball. And he goes and he's throwing this go route to Dante Thornton Jr. And for some reason, he must not have thought that Geno was going to go to him. When they broke the huddle, he must not have thought he was going to be the target because he ran from the snap. But he didn't really run, if you know what I mean. He didn't get on his horse right from the snap. So when he realized the ball was coming his way, Thornton's got speed, man. He's a 4-3 guy. He has speed, and all of a sudden he tried to get on his horse, and the ball sailed over his head. So to the naked eye, to someone that maybe is sitting in the stands or watching from the sidelines and just kind of lightweight paying attention, it looked like Geno overthrew him. It's like, oh, man, Geno missed him. He had a step on the DB, and he did. But that was a Dante Thornton mistake. If he had been running from the snap, he's in the end zone celebrating, right? But he didn't start getting on his giddy up until he realized the ball was coming his way. And it's funny when that happened, Qadry Ishmael, you remember his brother, the Rocket, right? Rocket Ishmael played for the Raiders. Qadry played for the many NFL teams. He's there because his son is a tight end for the Raiders, and so he's observing practice. I was standing next to him. It's funny, Q and Q, right? Matter of fact, I'm supposed to talk to him later on today, so I'll probably have a good interview with him. He's a really, really good dude, part of the Baltimore Ravens, their broadcast team, but he's there with the Raider, watching his son, and he as soon as he saw that, he pointed out, he was like, that's on the wide receiver. He didn't go. And I told him, I said, that's Thornton. He's out of Tennessee. How much of that do you think becomes from the Tennessee offense? Right. And I have so much familiarity with these type of offenses from when I was covering Baylor. When I was covering Baylor in the Art Briles offense, these guys knew where the ball was going as they got to the line of scrimmage, to the point where some of the wide receivers wouldn't even leave the line of scrimmage. They would just look like fake moving their arms like they're running because they knew it wasn't coming their way. That Josh Heupel offense in Tennessee is very, very simple, right? It's like, hey, we're going to go here. Hey, we're going to go there. Like, the ball's coming to you. So I feel like that was a moment where he felt like, okay, he wasn't going to get the rock, so he didn't have to go full throttle and he didn't have to run as fast as, he should. But in the NFL, you always have to be ready for the ball to come. And again, that's only one little mistake, and I'm pointing it out because we talk about those offenses and how they translate to the NFL quite a bit. And there are expectations. There's been a lot of hype around Dante Thornton, but he can't have those type moments. When the ball is snapped, he's got to get on his giddy up. That's his superpower, is his speed. So you can't use your speed when you're halfway down the field and then realize the ball's coming. By that time, the play is over. Right? You're gonna lose. You're not gonna get there. It's either gonna be an overthrow or a turnover. It's not gonna be you getting a touchdown. And on top of that, if you do catch up to the ball, most likely it's only gonna be a completion, and you're not gonna be able to take it the distance, right? Because then you're gonna have to try to adjust, and you're gonna give time for the DB to get back and play. There's so much that can go wrong. But that was something that stood out. But those are the type of learning moments that you want to have in training camp, and that was just day one. That was something that stood out to me as well. Final thing I want here in segment number 2, today's Locked On Raiders podcast, then we'll hear from you coming up in segment number 3. Something that we heard from Maxx Crosby following practice that really stood out to me, and it was about Jackson Powers-Johnson. He's taking JPJ under his wing. It's basically like the Maxx Crosby mentorship, right? He's teaching him the way that he approaches the offseason, the way he works, and we've seen JPJ lose weight, bulk up with muscle, but lose actual weight. He's healthy. Last year at this time, he wasn't healthy. He was in the tub as opposed to being on the field there in Costa Mesa. And, we found out a lot about the relationship between Maxx Crosby and JPJ when he started talking about him really taking JPJ under his wing and being his mentor. Check it out.
It's something I like to be 100% real. Like last year, me and Jackson did not have a great relationship. You know what I mean? And I'm hard on guys, you know what I mean? Especially young dudes. Like, there's respect that's got to be earned, when you come into this league, in this locker room especially. Like, there's a certain standard I expect from the guys. And he did a lot. Like, the amount of growth he's had in the last year has been unbelievable. If I was sitting here a year ago and you would have told me all the stuff he did this offseason to get himself in this position he's in, I truly wouldn't believe you. But that's the beauty in this game. Like, you have a choice every day. If you want to get better, you want to get worse. There's no such thing as staying the same. And that dude he's got all the talent in the world. He's strong as a freaking ox. He's a great dude. He's a baller. But it's about the details. And he's come in this offseason with the mindset that he's going to take that next step. And he's done that. You know what I mean? He's been super consistent. He's been, dialed in on the details. He's been here. Me and him are the first guys here every single day. And he's been consistent with it the whole time. And I can't say enough. Like, that's truly all I can ask for. If you show up, it's not going to be easy. He definitely got off the hook a little bit because I was going through my injury, so I couldn't really kill him fully. But it was great having him get back this summer. He was going to Australia, comes back, and I got to really run him in the dirt. And I'm healthy 100%. But that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? We're about pushing each other and getting better every day. So yeah, I'm so proud of that dude, and I know he's gonna have his best season yet. And I can go on and on about him, but the energy he brings is infectious.
Had no idea that Maxx Crosby wasn't really on the same page with JPJ rookie year. And again, that's nothing that we knew and we asked him about. We just knew that they've been working together. As you heard Max say, they show up together first to the facility each and every day. He's adapted to his offseason workout. He's been on the bike plan. He's been doing everything, and we've been seeing that. And JPJ is taking on a more of a leadership role now. He's going over to the center position. But how much props do you want to give that young man? Only year 2 in the league, one offseason, and realizes I got a lot of work to do. I got to earn the respect of that big fella over there, the guy who's the face of the franchise. I got to do what he does, right? That's when you talk about, leading by example. That's what Maxx Crosby did. And he talks about, I ride these guys. I ride my teammates. I expect the most out of them. So he's even being more vocal, but JPJ, to his credit, understood I got to do more. I got to get on that guy's level, and then had the ability to go do it. So I think that can only be really good moving forward for JPJ. I think that's only good moving forward for the offensive line. And obviously the camaraderie of the team, if they're all seeing the example and hearing the example and taking to the teaching of Maxx Crosby and the rest of the leaders of the team, everyone else will do the same thing. If it's good for Max and he's doing it and he's the leader, he's our face, I better go out there and do it as well. Who am I not to go work my tail off as hard as he is? Again, that was something to me that stood out as well. And like I said, would never have known about the relationship between Maxx Crosby and JPJ, except for he told us on Wednesday. So that's what I got for you. Just a little kind of recap, just some of the sights and sounds and observations that I had from day 1 of Raiders training camp, with day 2 coming up later on this morning, depending on what time you're listening to us. Coming up in segment number 3, we'll hear from you. Your calls and texts, 707-654-4693. We'll close out next here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor here on the show, and it's a title sponsor, which is Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And I'm telling you, when you start using Monarch Money, you'll notice a lot of things like, oh, how much you spend on fast food or eating out or ride share or the combination of the two, or the one that gets everyone, the big surprise, the oh my gosh type moment when you find out how many subscriptions you're paying for. Sometimes you may even be paying for duplicates of the same one. Yeah, Monarch Money, I'll let you know about all that and help you take control. Matter of fact, you want to take control of your finances? Do it with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Promo code is LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from Wine Country Raider. He's calling to talk about the addition of Jamal Adams to the Raiders roster and what that could mean. Here he is, Wine Country Raider.
What's up, Q? It's Wine Country Raider calling in on the Jamal Adams conversation. I think he can kind of be that guy that you and Link were talking about, you know, getting the running back out of the backfield and you know, kind of covering that. I think he's going to be a really good, like, joker piece, you know, if he's healthy and, you know, he makes the team. I think he'll be a guy who we can, you know, send out to the quarterback a lot, get some TFLs, and just be like kind of like a joker piece around the line of scrimmage. I think just also just, you know, having a veteran guy who kind of knows how Pete Carroll runs the team is just kind of like a little added piece of like just knowledge. So not mad at the pickup. Excited to see how it pans out, and just excited that you know, that training camp's underway now. So shout out everything you do, Q. Shout out Raider Nation, and just win, baby.
Wine Country, thanks so much for the call. And look, we're only one practice in, a long way to go, but he does have a chance to be a real deal player with this team, right? He's obviously got to make it through camp. It's a young team, but with the veteran leadership that he provides, and he is absolutely an absolute alpha dog when it comes to leadership. You got guys like him, Jamal Adams, you got Jeremy Chin, you got Jermaine Pratt, Elandon Roberts, right? Devin White, guys like that could be difference makers, especially on that defensive side of the ball with a lot of young guys, but you mix it in that leadership. They really could be those dudes, and him in particular, Jamal Adams, could be that box safety attacking the quarterback, the ball carrier, just wrecking havoc around the line of scrimmage. John Spytek was on the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920 on Wednesday, and he said we have a specific plan for Jamal Adams, not your traditional safety, but a guy, again, like I just described, playing up closer to the line of scrimmage. And as I referenced on Wednesday's show, in 2020, man, the first year in Seattle, he had 9.5 sacks, right? And the one thing that stood out to me, man, I mean, I should have talked about it in segment number 2, but I went a little bit long there. One thing at the end of practice from Jamal Adams, he lined up in the slot, and you know when you could tell that, oh, that guy's coming. That guy's about to come. That guy is, you know, he's going on the blitz or whatever. Like, you start to do a little fake. You see a guy get a little bounce, a little pep in his step. He got a couple bounces, and on that snap, boom, he took a beeline to the quarterback, and, man, he looked like a hot knife going through butter, I should say. And he just slid through that O-line and got right to the quarterback. That's the kind of plays that Jamal Adams could bring. Now, again, it's one day of practice, right? He's going to feel healthy. He's going to look strong. He's going to look fast right now. He's got to get through the grind of the summer of training camp, got to make it through preseason, make the 53-man roster. But if he can be that guy, Patrick Graham could use 3 safeties on the field at the same time, get it very creative defensively, and that's something that Lincoln talks about all the time, getting very creative defensively, especially when you know that you have a relatively young defense. How does he make up for that? Well, guys like Jamal Adams could end up being that difference maker. You know, when we talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, and the X factor, we talked about that before Jamal Adams was signed. He literally could be the Raiders' X factor. That could be a guy that later on, when we address this conversation again and have it, you know, towards the end of training camp and when they're getting ready for the 53-man roster, he really could be that guy. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Just got time for a couple more. This text comes from Raider in South Carolina. Hey, Q, it's Raider from South Carolina. Been watching your podcast for over a year. I think you do a tremendous job on covering the Raiders. Long story short, Raider fans have been without a consistent winning team for so long that some of them blame the individuals that support the Raiders. Stay strong. Continue to report Raiders content the way that you have. I think the Raiders will have a successful season, but it may not deem a successful season by some. A successful season for me will be 9 or more wins. Also, a strong performance in the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, go Raiders. That's Raider in South Carolina. Thanks for the text. And yeah, I agree. I've been very, as a matter of fact, about 8 to 9 wins. I think that is reasonable. That doubles or more than doubles what the Raiders did in 2024. You're not playing in a division that's full of slouches. If you're in the NFC South, that'd be a different conversation, right? Hell, if you're in the AFC South, it'd be a different conversation. But it's the AFC West. 3 out of 4 teams made the playoffs. Denver's defense looks like it's going to be better. The Chargers may take a slight step back. Most people that I've talked to really have the Raiders slid in at the number 3 spot. So look, if 3 teams make the playoffs again, maybe they're that team. They're that 3rd team. That'd be awesome. I would love that. But I just don't want to set myself up or Raider Nation up for failure and be like, yep, there's no doubt they're going to win double-digit games and they're going to the playoffs this year. That's the goal. That's always the goal. You want to do it, but it's going to take a lot of heavy lifting, and that's why they're doing what they're doing right now. And that's why, going back to what I said in segment number 2, it was so important for them to come in and not act like this was day one of school. Even though we treat it as day one of school, everyone's got their fresh haircut, wearing the new clothes, right? Got the good smile on that, just came from the dentist, teeth all white, looking really good, right? That's how we always treated day one of school, right? That's how they treated it. But at the same time, they built off what they did earlier in the offseason in OTAs and mandatory minicamp. It's not like they pressed the reset button and they had to start over. They picked up where they left off. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Got a call from Raider 916 at Sacramento, California, in that area. He's calling to talk about the show and really wants to see or hear segment number 3 roll on, despite a few of the absolutely ridiculous calls and texts that we've dealt with as of late. Here he is, Raider 916.
Q. This is Raider 916, man. How you doing? I haven't called in a while. And the reason being is because, when you talk about the draft or, camp and all that stuff, I don't really have too much to contribute. I usually try like to contribute during the season. But anyways, I love listening to your show, man. I think you do a great job. But I'm calling because I'm listening to the show on 22nd or 23rd. I can't remember. But there was a caller that was talking about how you view players, and I think there was a conversation or a feedback that you mentioned that the caller may have said something about being racist, and you were considering maybe not doing the 3rd session of the show where you're taking Raider calls. And I would just want to encourage you, man. You know what? Everybody has their opinion. Everybody has their feedback, but you do a great job getting the fans' feedback. You do a great job with how you handle it. And I just want to encourage you to continue with, session 3 of the calls of the show, because that's important stuff. I like to hear from fans and what they think about the team and how they're moving forward. And I think your take and the connections you have, that's why I call you Big Time. I've been calling you Big Time all these years because I knew you were going to get to this level. But please consider continuing with part 3 of the show, because I think getting that fan feedback, that's what makes you stand out in front of all the other locked-ons, man. You go above and beyond for us fans, and I just would hate for one call to make you consider to not do that, or maybe there's been several calls throughout the years, but, man, let me encourage you to keep going, man. People are going to say what they're going to say, but you just continue to be you and don't change who you are, okay? All right, go Raiders, and love all my Raider fans. All right, bye.
Thank you, brother, for the call. Appreciate you. And you're right? Raider Nation always want to hear from them. That's why, I started the podcast voicemail line many moons ago when I started this, when I joined on and took over this podcast following the 2017 season after, John Gruden got hired for the second time around, right? I started the voicemail line because I think it's so important to hear from Raider Nation. But at some point, you start to hear things and you start to, get text, and you only get a little bit of it, right? I only give you a little taste test of what I actually receive. And so at some point you just were like, all right, you know what? Well, then forget it. And, I always live with the feelings of you appreciate what you have once it's gone, right? You always appreciate what you had once it's gone. And so I feel like now that we're actually into football activities, we could be more football focused and not to the point where it's like, well, I ain't got nothing to talk about today, so let's hit us with an outlandish call or outlandish text. And so that's I just think that all of us, including myself, we all could do better with that. And so we definitely will. So it's going to be all good. Like I said, now that camp is going, there's football activities, there's stuff to talk about. I think that Raider Nation will all be back to the point of, hey man, let's figure out what's going on with this football team. Not worried about this, that, and the other, a bunch of that nonsense. And as far as being big time, man, I ain't big time, that's for sure. Maybe one day you'd be like, man, I remember when that guy. Maybe, but I am nowhere close to that yet, not at all. Right, I'm going to continue to work as hard as I can to try to get to where I can be. But yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm just a guy that has fun and enjoys what I do each and every day. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Pitmaster Raider. Q, interesting that you'd bring up the backup quarterback situation on the podcast and even thinking the Raiders would even consider trading O'Connell. We currently have a 36-year-old quarterback that has only had 3 decent seasons in his career, and last year was down from the previous 2. O'Connell's a proven winner who's never been given the chance in a stable situation and will no doubt be competing for the starting job. It'd be insane to even consider trading him in a league that has quarterbacks go down often. O'Connell, in my opinion, is our future. We need to focus on his development. Love the show. Keep with the good work. Pitmaster Raider out. Thank you for the text. I appreciate you. And I hope that you didn't take that from Wednesday's show that I said I was considering trading Aiden O'Connell. I was not doing that. I said that if and only if some kind of injury happened across the league and a team got desperate, they may call the Raiders in interest for Aiden O'Connell. And that we see all the time. And that, I think, especially since he's already in year 3 of his contract. Remember, he's only got a 4-year contract, and they just drafted a rookie who's got it's a reset, right? He's got 4 years on his deal. So I want to see what Cam Miller does in camp just in case that happens. Again, and that's why I said, and I tried to say it as slow as possible, and with the asterisks, I said, I'm not at all advocating for Aiden O'Connell to be traded. I'm not. I am just saying if an injury happens and the Raiders see Cam Miller in practice and say, well, this guy's pretty good and this team is desperate, they're calling and saying, hey, we need a guy that has, like you said, proven to be a winner, proven to have starting experience. And look, on top of that, he's got starting experience. It's not like he's been a consistent winner. Right. And you can blame the team last year for not starting him when the season started. But when he got in there, he did get injured as well. So then they had to go back to Minshew. So some is on him. Some has been on the team. Everything hasn't been smooth sailing for Aiden O'Connell. He's been in a pretty tough situation. I do think he can be a really good quarterback in this league. I don't know what the plan is for the future because, as you mentioned, Geno Smith, 35, 36, right? He's got, 3-year timeline as far as if you just look at the contract. Aiden O'Connell only has this year and next year left on his deal. Cam Miller has 4. So I'm just playing the math game because the NFL is a business, as you know. So things could always happen. And they may be willing to move from their backup quarterback if they have trust in the other guy that's there as well. That's all I was saying. So if you took away that I was trying to trade Aiden or was suggesting that they trade Aiden, that was wrong, and maybe I worded it incorrectly, and I apologize. But that's definitely not what I was suggesting. But I do know how this league is, as you know how this league is, and if injuries happen, phone calls could be made. That's all I'm saying. So thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. And finally, we close out with a call from Derek from Missouri. He's calling to talk about a storyline that's taking place in D.C. and how the Raiders could take advantage. Also talks about Big Mike, that's Michael Mayer, and the season that he needs to have and why. Here's Derek from Missouri.
Q, this is Derek from Missouri. First of all, I just want to say I'm thankful for all that you and Ari do. But I got 2 points. Terry McLaurin's holding out right now, and I think we should jump all over it. I know that the Commanders probably want to retain him, but I would send probably a 2nd or 3rd rounder and Trey Tucker to the Commanders. I don't know if they would entertain that, but that's what I would do. Get an alpha receiver. I know he's 30 years old, 31, around there, but I would do it in a heartbeat. And my second point is, I think for our offense to take the next step, I think Michael Mayer needs to have a big year. I think he will have a big year. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I watched him back in Notre Dame. Truly one of the greatest Notre Dame pass catchers I've ever seen in my life. And I mean that. So I think if Michael Mayer can stay healthy, I think we're in for a big year. Lined up besides Brock Bowers. I'm really optimistic about what this Raiders offense can do. So thank you, Q, for all that you do, and peace out, Raiders.
Derek, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And, man, the deal with Terry McLaurin in Washington, right? This is obviously wide receiver number 1 for Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders were 1 game away from the Super Bowl, Jaden Daniels' rookie year. Terry McLaurin finally has a quarterback worth the salt getting him the ball, and they had a really good connection. Obviously, he feels like he's in a place of, power somewhat. He's got leverage right now because they don't want to stunt the growth of Jaden Daniels. My only question, I don't think that they're going to trade him. I definitely would be interested to a certain extent if they were to put him on the block. And if you look at the Raiders and they do what Pete Carroll's saying, that they're trying to win and they're trying to win 10, 11 games, they're trying to make the playoffs, he would obviously be a big addition, big help. He's not a diva like a lot of wide receivers are out there, like you would label a lot of wide receivers. He's actually a guy you never hear from, but he's frustrated with his salary right now and where he's at. So I could see a team making a trade for him and maybe giving him a 3-year, say $90 million deal or whatever the case may be, something around that, $90 million with, I don't know, maybe 80 or 70 something guaranteed. I don't know. I'm not a capologist, but something like that, like a 3-year deal. He is 30 years old. I can see them making that move. The one question I have about the Commanders, what do they think of Jaden Daniels? And the reason I say that is, do they think that Jaden Daniels is in the elite category right now after year 1? And if they do, then maybe they're willing to take like the Josh Allen treatment. Okay, we're gonna trust that our quarterback can make any wide receiver really good, or use any tight end to make them really good, right? Because that's what Buffalo did, right? They felt like Josh Allen was elite, and he is. And they said, Stephon Diggs, we can move him out of here. Gabe Davis, we can move him out of here. We got 2 young tight ends. We've got a young wide receiver that we just drafted in the 2nd round. We're going to roll with them, and he's going to be just fine. Well, he turned that into an MVP year. I doubt that Washington thinks about Jaden Daniels at that level already, but one would think, like, do they? And if they do, could it be a possibility that they would move him? I wouldn't have no problem if they did, go out and make a move for him. I just don't think that the Commanders would be willing to move him. I think that they understand that Jaden Daniels needs Terry McLaurin, and Terry McLaurin needs Jaden Daniels, and they need, as an organization, both those guys out there and being happy to go out there and achieve the goal that they're trying to achieve and not have a sophomore slump for Jaden Daniels. As far as Big Mike goes, man, he had big OTAs. Pete Carroll talked about it. He had big, mandatory minicamp. Saw him very active on Wednesday at training camp. I'd love to see Big Mike really have a big season. One, for him. His career has not been what he expected to be when he was drafted in the 2nd round out of Notre Dame. We know what he did in college. He was a fantastic tight end. Hell, he was Brock Bowers before Brock Bowers, right? Not the exact same style, but he was a really good tight end like that, right? One of the best tight ends in the game, when he was at Notre Dame. And so I'd love to see him get his career back on track. Not to mention, I'd love to see the Raiders have another weapon that they can rely on, like Big Mike. So, I'm all here for it. Sign me up. Big Mike needs a big season, going to have a big season. I'm good with that. I'll take it. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. And we'll close out. This was supposed to be a call that made yesterday's show, but it didn't. L in Canada, quick call. He's just calling basically to say thanks. Here's L in Canada.
Hello, Q. This is L from Canada, first-time caller. I don't really have much to say. Just thank you for doing such a great show and being my go-to for Raiders news. Have a good one and keep it up. Cheers.
I thought I'd end the show with that good positive note right there. Quick call from L in Canada. It means a lot. Thank you for the thank you, right? That's why I shout out every day to Ari, because I think he does a great job. His commitment to excellence, what we try to do here on the show, is very much appreciated. So that's why I shout out to Ari, just like you shout out to us. And again, I shout out to you, Raider Nation, as well, because you do, as many of you know and have said, you make the show go as well. It's not a me thing. It's not an Ari thing. It's a us thing. I just hope that us can stay together and we can stay together, continue to make this thing a fun place to go to and, get away from all the other BS that's going on in and around our lives. That's not, fun stuff to dive into. But again, that's just me. So, if you're thinking about going to training camp, depending on what time you're listening to us, it's free to get in. It's free for anybody. If you want to show up, it's first come, first serve, right? You got to park in the parking lot on Amigo Street. The doors open at 7 a.m. Practice starts at 8:30. And that won't be the only one that's free and open to anyone to show up and enjoy practice, but definitely want to make sure I pass that along. And any other practice that they have, I'll pass it along for that as well. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, as we're talking about what today's practice will be like and who we'll get to talk to and hear from following practice, we're going to have a really good day, and hopefully the Raiders continue to stack really good days in preparation for a 2025 upcoming season. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.